A very good morning and welcome once again to Razep Africa on Global TV, Abuja. I am Wime Anete. We'll go on a short break and when we return, we'll take you through African news updates, and after which we'll surely make sure you enjoy a discussion session with us. Do want to stay tuned and go nowhere. Good morning.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome once again. This is still Razep Africa on Global TV Abuja. I am Wime Anete. Well, we begin this morning with the African news update, where we begin in South Africa. We tell you that African authorities have launched a major security operation aimed to tackling crime and gang violence across several provinces. In a very strong show of force in Cape Town, hundreds of military and police personnel have been deployed as part of a coordinated, intelligence-led strategy targeting organized crime, illegal mining, and drug networks. Officials have actually said that the year-long operation will focus on some of the country's most affected communities where violent crimes continues to disrupt daily life. Authorities also insist their intervention is long overdue, with South Africa recording some of the highest homicide rates globally outside conflict zones. Security officials say the goal is not just enforcement, but restoring stability and rebuilding trust in affected areas. They add that the combined effort of military and police forces is expected to significantly curb gang activity and improve safety for vulnerable populations. As security concerns dominate headlines, economic pressures are also mounting, particularly around the rising cost of fuel. South Africa has also announced a temporary reduction in fuel levies in a bid to cushion the impact of soaring global oil prices linked to the Iran conflict. The government says the one-month tax cut is part of broader measures being considered to support households and about 15% and diesel by as much as 40%. Officials have actually warned the inflationary pressures that it could cost or persist rather if global tensions continue, while government says it may extend relief measures depending on how the situation evolves. Now, the pressure is already being felt on the ground, with many South Africans expressing frustration over the rising cost of living. Motorists say the levy cut offers little comfort as transport and daily expenses continue to climb. For many households, the surge in fuel prices is adding to an already difficult economic environment. Economists caution that the impact could extend beyond the pump, driving up food prices and other essential goods. While citizens acknowledge government efforts to intervene, many argue that more comprehensive support will be needed to ease the burden on consumers in the coming month. Let's now shift our focus to West Africa, where Ghana's former President Nana Akufo-Addo has been appointed to lead an ECOWAS election observation mission to Benin. The move comes ahead of the country's April 12 presidential election, which will determine a successor to President Patrice Talon, who is stepping down after completing his constitutional term. Regional observers say the mission will play a critical role in ensuring transparency and credibility, particularly in a region that has recently faced democratic setbacks. ECOWAS says the exercise is part of efforts to promote stability and strengthen democratic institutions across member states. Now elsewhere in Sahel, uncertainty continues in Niger as the presidential term of the ousted leader Mohamed Bazoum officially comes to an end. Bazoum remains in detention following the 2023 military coup, with no clear indication of his release or trial, raising fresh concerns about the country's political future. His legal team argues that his tenure should not be considered concluded, citing the interruption caused by his detention. The situation highlights ongoing tensions between military authorities and democratic processes in the region as Niger navigates an uncertain political transition. And now in Senegal, a controversial new law has intensified debate over human rights after authorities doubled prison sentences for same-sex relations. The legislation now signed into law increases penalties to up to 10 years and introduces sanctions for those accused of promoting such relationships. The move has drawn sharp criticism from international rights groups who say it undermines fundamental freedoms. However, supporters within the country argue the law reflects prevailing cultural and social values, underscoring deep divisions over the issue. And now finally, we turn to global support, where Africa is celebrating a historic milestone as 10 nations qualify for the expanded 2026 FIFA World Cup. The achievement marks the continent's highest ever representation at the tournament, reflecting growing competitiveness and investment in football development. Analysts have also come to say that the expanded format presents a unique opportunity for African teams to make a deeper impact on the world stage. With both traditional powerhouses and emerging teams in the lineup, expectations are high for a strong showing at the global tournament. And that has been African News Update on Razep Africa. And we'll be moving over now to our discussion session, but not after the short break. We want to stay tuned.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television. Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Joy Asoye. Happy to be here, and thanks to Aniete Unyime for giving us those very important African news updates right there. Well put. But let's go straight to South Africa, which was the beginning of that story, where gang violence. You know, when we keep talking about Africa and the conflict we face is dynamic. Nigeria has its own banditry in certain parts of the country. We have kidnappings rife in some parts of the country, and this very unfortunate phenomenon of unknown gunmen. But it's good to see that South Africa is sending hundreds of military and police personnel that will be deployed to several parts for a coordinated intelligence-led strategy targeting organized crime. Is that something we cannot bring to Nigeria, for instance? I mean, I saw the video of those who were preparing to go. It was war, because indeed it is war against criminality. And the very fact, you know, body language is everything. And when you see that the country is very, very is poised and intentional about anything, whoever you are, whatever crime you are committing, you will sit up.
So, thank you very much, Joy, because bringing this again to fore is very important. And it is because we're seeing a country who's ready to fight, who's ready to battle crime. And it is very important because somehow it's now looking as though we're actually joking in this part of the world, in Nigeria.
Very unfortunate.
So this is the South African government actually pushing out hundreds of thousands of military personnel to go fight, to combat crime, you know. And the big question will be, just like you mentioned, they were all very agitated, waiting as though they were actually...
You needed to see them all well clad, properly clad.
As if they were actually waiting for a day. They will say, oh yeah, come and go, and then they will leave. So I'll ask the question, some sort of rhetorical question, and say, is there anything different in South Africa that we are not doing in Nigeria? And maybe,
I don't think you have to ask that question. The question goes without asking. Because if we have law enforcement so positioned and poised to fight insurgency, I think we would record better successes. And the many flaws that we have in our combat. Coincidentally, when you send Nigerian military or Nigerian law enforcement from police for peacekeeping activities anywhere, any part of the world, we succeed with flying colors. What is the difference? Why is it that when it comes to
come back home,
organize ourselves back home and fight? You know, it's also very disheartening that, because a lot of people, we had this conversation yesterday where you talked about the IDP that you visited. These are individuals who have seen firsthand the failure of government to protect them, right? And if government has failed to protect them, where else do they fall to? I asked a security expert yesterday evening. I said, is it really too bad to have Nigerians protect themselves? There was an ex-general who openly told everyone, Nigerian government is obviously unable to protect you, protect yourself. But is it really that bad? I understand that nobody wants guns and ammunition and this fighting equipment in the hands of just everyone.
So Joy, yesterday I started with talking about the number of the personnel we actually have. Okay, so you'll agree with me that today we are hearing South Africa mobilizing hundreds of thousands of personnel to go to a particular area, region to combat crime. Now, that would actually show that they are not the hundreds of thousands are not the entire of
military
exactly
number, personnel,
so that means for whatever region they are being sent to, the orders are still rested in this other region, so that you not send people out
and leave any part porous.
Exactly. So and that is a big concern first and foremost. So I think we will start from there in this discussion to say, do we really have need to recruit more hands? And the answer is obvious. Yes, we have. So that at the end of the day, when we are sending people out to a particular region to go combat crime, we will now have others, ready to support. Now,
before you continue, this is a country that already has. I had a conversation again, like I said earlier, with a Nigerian security expert who said, even with that proclamation, that certain number of policemen who were manning VIPs and all of that had been withdrawn, but we still see them with these VIPs. So I'm just buttressing that in spite of the paltry number that we have, we still have a large chunk protecting the VIPs.
Okay, so now we are done with the aspect of having to look for more men to be able to be recruited and then get into combating crime. Let's look at the other aspect of it, Joy. I have serious concerns with how they are being taken care of. Okay, so just on a lighter note, I had a discussion with my mother and some other persons that I actually hold dear. And I said, I'm actually thinking about going into the military. And my mother said, God forbid. So it sent a very big, idea into my head. So why my mother say, God forbid, and it only would be because
she was seeing what has happened.
Exactly. So and then there are no measures to be able to protect the persons who are supposed to go protect others. So I have an uncle who is actually a military officer, and my uncle who's a military officer, he's been. Sometime they had a combat and then he was shot. But do you know that the family had to take care of him, not the military? And when he recovered, he had to go back to still continue fighting.
No, but that surprises me because we're supposed to have some sort of insurance.
Exactly. So the question was why was he not?
He did not have health insurance.
He did not. We don't know where that was.
Whoa,
so
that's sad.
We're asking the question. So we're saying, Uncle,
why
is it all different?
But another thing we should also take into cognizance in this story here is that this organized personnel that are going to be deployed are also targeting illegal miners and drug networks.
Yes.
Now in Nigeria, the drug cartel is so hush-hush. It exists. It is so hush-hush. It's only when the NDLEA, that's the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency, does something about it that we're like, that's a syndicated network right there. But I've never seen where government has intentionally deployed for the proliferation, apart from those consignments that are often confiscated during border at the borders, plane travel. What is our intention towards confiscating and stopping the proliferation of drugs in our country. We see the huge damage it is doing to young people. We act as if we don't see it. We don't have a lot of rehabilitation centers, but we just bury our heads in the sand like it's not going on, but it is going on. But it's good to see that South Africa is intentional about deploying authorities and deploying personnel, law enforcement to go to these zones just so that they can have enforcement and once again build stability in those areas where it is the population is most vulnerable and all of that. So it's good to see how ready they are. And I like this picture, the picture where you can also see that they are mingling with civilians.
Yeah, they're mingling.
Yes.
Having good time.
Exactly, without particular.
So somehow you also want to say that their mingling like this would actually give civilians the opportunity to be able to interact with them and say, I know where they are. This is where they are. Okay, so you can actually go here, and I've been there, I've seen them, but I couldn't do anything. Thank God you're here, so please walk in here,
Absolutely.
here. And it will help. So recently we have been talking about state policing, and maybe major focus would be in the course of having this state police. Of course, even from Akwa Ibom, I want to be a part of the state police. I would be basically walking around my environment, my area, and I'm one person who is very conversant with my environment. So I will be able to go in here and come out of here. And now look at what we are seeing on the screen, where the military personnel from wherever are entering the particular community, and they're having a good dialogue with the persons who are from that area.
Playing with kids.
So
because they understand that, listen, we are here to fight
for you,
insurgents, but we're not fighting civilians.
Yes.
These are the ones to be protected.
Yes, exactly.
Which is the dichotomy that our own law enforcement often
so
forget.
the civilians will be able to now give them the hideouts and then tell them where to enter and where to come out from.
Absolutely, because there should be that synergy and information gathering above everything. That's a very good one right there. And I'm hoping that we take a cue when government is intentional about having crime solved. There is, you can't fight government. It's anywhere in the world you cannot really fight government, but it is intentionality that shows impact of what government policies and initiatives is, and never the lip service we hear. We commiserate with the victims of this crime. We would ensure that it doesn't happen again. Like the president, bring them to book. We would see to the end of this barbaric act. So these are narratives Nigerians are so used to.
The book will never get filled.
Bring them to the book, let us rest. but that's it for that story right there. We're just moving on now to other stories. Pressure already mounted as South Africans are expressing frustration over the rising cost of living. Motorists have says the levy cut offers a little comfort as transport and daily expenses continue to climb. Now this is the impact. This is caused by the impact of the global crisis that's going on at the moment, and consumers all over the world are burdened. It is not just South Africa. We have other parts of the country, but parts of the world rather. Some cutting the number of work hours or work days of their staff. So it's good to see that levies are being cut at a time when Nigeria is pounding on taxes, almost as if the government is insensitive to these back-to-back shocks. I have told whoever cares to listen that Nigerian government is not necessarily at fault when it comes to this new hike in fuel prices. I have explained it to whoever cares to listen. However, I also know that the Nigerian government can do more. When you wake up in the morning and you read that the Nigerian government is asking for another $6 billion loan, Nigerian government is going to get approval for a $6 billion loan, and you say, whatever happened to the subsidy that was supposed to now pool funds for development and infrastructure? If we are still going to borrow again, I thought we were supposed to be past this in-season borrowing. I'm not saying cut off completely borrowing, but what are we doing? When we look at the standard of living of a typical Nigerian, or the purchasing power of a typical Nigerian, I cannot for the life of me understand why we are not pumping investments, government investments, not palliatives. Not palliative.
You're always very careful about
Yes, I'm always, because when you say citizen agitation, it's like people listening to me, the public office holders think once again that we're asking for palliatives. No, but there are several ways we can improve farming equipment for the agricultural sector. There are several strategies that will improve indices of an entrepreneur. What are you doing in ensuring they have soft loans and all of that? I also admit that the government has good intentions in some parts, but we are not seeing the ripple effect, maybe not just yet.
So, Joy, when we started with talking about South Africa, and I almost wanted to push some sort of blame. We're having issues today. The American government are actually rising up against the Iran government, and there's fight between these two countries, a war. Okay, and then these two countries are up against themselves, and it is affecting every other part of the world. So, Joy, this is where my concern comes, and that is why I said I wanted to push a little bit of blame.
You want to blame America?
No, I think I want to come back home and blame us.
Okay, why are you blaming us? Because whether we like it or not, look at Nigeria and a massive oil-producing country.
Exactly.
If we can have the shocks of the global conflict, why would you blame us? And like I always explain.
So just like you mentioned, Joy.
Right.
Okay, we are an oil-producing country. Major oil-producing country in Africa, and as we speak, we are also facing the crisis of the
increasing energy prices and fuel prices and gas and all that.
Even as an major oil-producing country,
with one of the highest.
So what is actually the problem, Joy?
The problem is that there is corruption when it comes to our...
my concern.
Yes.
Exactly my concern.
But so this is something that was supposed to be fixed before the removal of fuel subsidy in the very first place. Let me explain once again. Nigeria, just like every OPEC country, has quotas to contribute not just for internal production of fuel, but also to other countries, international countries.
Right.
That is the OPEC constitution, to be part of the constitution.
Good.
Now, there is only so much Nigeria can give to an indigenous company like Dangote Refinery. Now, there is only so much NNPP can take. There's only so much other indigenous companies can take. At the moment, we are not able to give Dangote more than enough to cover production.
Good.
So Dangote is still having to source for.
So what's the reason we cannot give Dangote enough?
Because we are not producing enough. There's so much corruption. There's so much.
There's so much
pipeline vandalism. There's so much pipeline. What's that word when the siphon? When the siphon. And again, I keep saying it. When we have this conversation, Unime, you and I do not have what it takes to siphon crude.
Yeah, we do not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do not.
we do not.
I almost said we do not. I don't know for you.
Yeah, I do not, maybe not at the moment, but maybe in the future you ask me again. However, but it's very serious. To the level that affects our OPEC quota, it's not simple people that are siphoning this fuel.
You're right.
This vandalism that is getting us losing in millions. It's like that saying that you close your door just so that you are shielded, insulated from what's happening around. So certain individuals in this country are ensuring that they protect themselves and their families, but the country can burn. That's the problem we are facing. That's something we have not gone head on. But Unime, it's time to go for a short break. So much more to discuss on these issues, discussing the global conflict and how it is affecting Africa, affecting Nigeria, affecting energy, gas, and fuel prices. We'll be back after this short break. This is Razep Africa. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome back from that. Now we're shifting our focus from global conflict and how it is affecting. We took the story from South Africa where everyone is complaining. Rest assured, it's not just South Africa. We have all over the world. I think I saw
all over the world, yes.
Yeah, I saw a video. It's in Taiwan. They no longer have vehicles. They don't even bother driving.
Yeah, I
so
saw
thousands of people.
I called someone and they're having the same issue in the UK.
Yeah. Oh, in the UK it is that bad. And you know, when this entire crisis started, the Prime Minister had proclaimed some cap where energy prices will not surpass a certain cap.
Definitely.
And I was like, that's subsidy, that's fuel subsidy right
of course,
there.
Yes.
Why can our government not adjust and give us fuel subsidy at this point where these global economies are giving their organizations, are giving their citizens?
Joy, in some aspect of it, when we talk about even the other nations, maybe mention UK, there is some sort of control. Reason? Because they have, take for instance, when I talked to the friend, he said he's not really affected because he doesn't own a car. So he doesn't need the gas for the car. He's okay a little bit because there's power supply. But in Nigeria, we're affected all round because you do not have the power supply, so you need the fuel to be able to put on your generator, to be able to be comfortable a little bit. You need the fuel for your car, so you buy for your car, you buy for your generator at home, you buy for your generator at the office, you buy for what again? You buy for a whole lot,
everything.
Because we do not have power supply. So we are really affected here more than other nations of the world because we are dependent.
Solely dependent on energy needs.
So.
But in Nigeria, I can say to a very large extent, but for the fact that my vehicle is still dependent on petrol, I could say I could go off grid very easily and not be affected by this. This is not me gloating for everyone that's having to this biting period, but yes, I'm working to go off grid. I want by the time in my home, I don't depend on your national grid and the epileptic nature of it. And I'm encouraging. Actually, this is me encouraging not just individuals but governments to look into cleaner energies and safer, cleaner, and more reliable energies. These are alternatives that are not just good and cheap in the long run, but sustainable for our environment. And this is not rocket
but
science.
I think government houses are beginning to do cleaner energy. So
government, did you see the billions that was when you saw the many billions that was going to be invested, 10 billion was going to be invested in the solar, you're like, is it not better to just remain in the air? If Nigeria has to spend this much, it defeats the entire purpose of cleaner, cheaper, and more sustainable energy.
When government houses are beginning to have cleaner energy, you can only imagine that and there will be no thought about the common Nigerian who does not have what it takes to be able to do cleaner energy.
The beauty, like I had this conversation before, and the beauty about cleaner energy for these people, for when those who can afford it, like you, now bring and have more of this it naturally breaks the amount. So there's now going to be competition because a lot of people are after it.
Yeah.
The market would not be as tough as it is.
Yeah.
If there are more imports, naturally there will be more competition. More people will be bringing it into the country, and it will not be as exponential. In fact, I had a conversation here on the show with climate sustainability advocate who said, very soon, solar and cleaner energy solutions will be as cheap as. You remember when phones came out?
Yeah, it was very costly. And I remember almost getting a SIM at 18,000 naira.
Oh, you got your SIM cheap, 36,000 naira.
Okay,
and
so
remember what 36,000 naira was at the
36,000 was
time?
my father's.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
I got mine at
that's
18,000.
my generation of people.
Oh.
So that's how it's going to do work for the solar sector, where everything will come cheaper. I'm just hoping that governments would see the need, and we can fabricate these things in country. We have seen a lot of
but what Joy,
also do it.
What on earth is the reason we cannot have a good power supply that is coming from our
we have dilapidated facilities that monies that have been put into management over the years have not actually been managed.
And what government?
The Minister of Power saw when he resumed and did a tour of power facilities across the country, saw with dismay how dilapidated these facilities are.
What has he done?
And no, I don't want to go into what he's doing now. I'm telling you the reason why we are facing. This year so far we have not faced any national. Have we?
Yeah, we have.
Oh, okay. Again, I am absorbed from these issues. So these in-season recurring national grid collapses. So much has to be done to revamp our facilities. This is Nigeria that other neighboring African countries depend on to have.
But they have power supply almost constant.
Yeah, we give them.
We give them, but we don't have.
Exactly.
I stayed a year in Cameroon, and Joy, I saw power outage just once in a year.
Oh, I remember.
And it didn't take up to 5 hours.
Do you remember that there was this time, there was this power outage in Ghana? And they were yabbing us.
Yeah, of course.
And Ghanaians kept saying that, please bring back electricity, this isn't Nigeria. Oh my goodness.
But in the real sense, in reality,
it's
that is
not Nigeria,
yes.
Bring back electricity. Okay, we're moving on from that story now to Niger rather, as presidential term of the ousted leader Mohamed Bazoum officially comes to an end. Bazoum remains in detention following the 2023 military coup with no clear indication of his release or trial. And a lot of people are also saying that his tenure, the tenure has not really elapsed. It should not be counted to him as having served, because in truth he didn't serve. The military took over. In Niger. That's something we must address. The military coup. How is Sahel countries doing after the military coup has happened? Believe it or not, a lot of Nigerians will tell you we rather have Nigerians. I would rather have Nigeria also because for the first time in a long time, a country stood up to their colonizers and told France that you no longer have control of our revenue and our resources. If you go through, when you read through what happened, where France still had a finance minister that controlled the largest part of the revenue, and it was really unfortunate.
Somehow, I really have pity for some of these countries, because to be very sincere, we discussed something here earlier where we own something, we export, and then at the end of the day we go there to buy again. These are the things I actually see. In Cameroon they have cocoa, enough of it, but they don't process it in Cameroon. To have coffee, to have chocolate, no. They export all of those out. and they go directly to France. And then France will then they will now go back and buy them and come and sell. And this is a very major concern. Why can't you just do this in your country?
No, I mean, they won't even get patronage. They will not get patronage. You think Nigerian government, Nigerian investors cannot look at the cocoa industry and say, let us build, let us produce it?
So why can't they get patronage? Anyway.
Have you wondered why our textile industry has failed? Do you know where we get African textile?
Yes, of course I know, because
from
there
China, from Turkey is where you see our business people, the people in the fashion industry would very proudly tell you, no.
There's a particular
this is
material.
not a Nigerian.
There's a particular material I know about that was actually produced in one of the Igbo communities in Abia State, but today it is gone. You know, it is that.
You're just buttressing what I'm saying. Because our textile, we will not get patronage, unfortunately, because you and I still have a taste for Western.
And I think it is time we really call back ourselves to reality that we can actually do this here and get it here, and even at cheaper rate. Because when those things go out and when they return, they'll be coming with the prices of. For Cameroon, France for Nigeria will be talking dollars, and at the end of the day,
it weakens our own
currency. It makes the prices to go higher, so the common man cannot even purchase it. And then you now see the common man trying to purchase with all that he has just to get one single thing he would have actually gotten here, easily. But let me just take you back to the discussion that actually brought this in. Mohamed Bazoum, he's been in power, and unfortunately for him, he was ousted.
Interrupted, right? His tenure was interrupted.
Yeah, so, and gradually it is coming to an end, and people are saying his legal team is coming to say, let's have it at the back of our minds that he has not completed his tenure.
The funniest thing is, the first question that will come to your mind is, why are we even talking about his tenure or not? Let's have he gotten release.
You have not gotten freedom. Yes, exactly.
You get freedom, can now start discussing whether or not he has a tenure.
But
moreover, we're still talking for those who are calculating the democratic term. The military has not told you that we are ready to transmit power back to a democratic government.
Exactly.
So while I mean,
but somehow I also want to. I think I would want to also bring it to our minds that it is time for some certain leaders, African leaders. Let me be very specific now. African leaders to begin to hands off power. I'm beginning to look at the likes of the man in Cameroon. Please mention his name.
The 92-year-old.
Yeah, Paul Biya.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm beginning to look at the likes of Paul Biya, having to he's going to be in power till whenever. So ask me, should he continue? So Mohamed Bazoum, should you continue? Even if they say let's hand over back power to the democratic. Should you continue?
Why
Can't
not?
you just go home?
The Ugandan president said, why fix it if it ain't broken? Why fix it if it ain't broken? I'm doing well. Why do I have to leave?
So just go back and rest. In fact, it brings us to even our own Nigeria, where we have a lot of persons at their peak ages coming back to want to become president, and these are really,
What do you mean by a peak age? Because this isn't an African.
Let me give you an illustration.
After the insurrection, the January 6th insurrection, January 10th, January 6th insurrection in America. What did he tell you about the human being? Not a Nigerian, not an African. And a typical human being wants to remain in a place of power.
Yeah, that is very true.
Often, institutions curtail that to say, you know what, it doesn't have to be you all the time. Let's give an opportunity to the next person. Let's give an opportunity to the next person. But that insurrection opened our eyes. That is not an African thing. if you give anybody an opportunity. But the only difference in Africa is that we can pick and tweak the constitution as it pleases us.
Yeah.
So a Ugandan president can tell you, I can do 4 terms because I have the constitutional power, and then he changes it to 5 terms. He changes it once again to 7 terms, like we have seen over the years.
Yeah. So let me just do some.
And in that, you should also commend Nigeria,
because we've been consistent.
Consistent about our 2 terms.
Let me just let me bring in a fair illustration here, because I mentioned something about a peak age, and then you asked what the peak age is. I will not really say 80, 90, 70 is a peak age, but let me tell you, I know we actually observed it when Barack Obama was actually the president of the United States of America. He became a little bit older, you know.
Stress.
Of course, the stress of office. And when he returned, you know, after his years of service, he became younger. He returned. Same thing we saw with the likes of our past president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. While as president, he became older. He returned, he became younger and good. Now, look at Obasanjo. He's actually almost running around. He's looking younger because the stress of office is not on him anymore.
Right. I don't understand. Where are you going with this?
Okay, Joy. Where I'm going with this is simple. When you get to a peak age, please rest. Let the younger ones come and, you know, take over.
You have mentioned African leaders. Let's go to Joe Biden, that was 81 as president.
So I said I want to be specific with African leaders because this is where we are.
I see.
Okay. But that does not mean that other parts of the world are not also fighting the same issue. And I'm saying, for whatever reason you want to become a leader, please do it at the early ages. And then when you get to that thing I call the peak age, please return.
Please return, he says. That's quite interesting right there. But the final story we'll be taking is in Senegal, where a controversial new law has intensified debate over human rights after authorities doubled prison sentences for same-sex relations and you know, giving it up to 10 years and introducing sanctions for those accused of promoting such relationships. That's interesting to know there. Because Africa has been very intentional, but for South Africa and some other countries, Africa has been very, very intentional about not getting into the LGBT. I was reading about I can't remember, a footballer, I think he's a footballer, a US footballer who openly talked about his religious beliefs vis-a-vis to the LGBT community and all of that, and it affected his stance. He was outrightly suspended or removed altogether, and that story is trending at the moment. But that's how the world sees it. So finally, we turn to global sports, where Africa is celebrating a historic milestone as 10 nations qualify for the expanded 2026 FIFA World Cup. This FIFA World Cup is going to happen where? I wonder how America will take us, because you know, we have had several visa ban, and so it will be nice to see how.
I'm praying that these issues first and foremost will stop, so that we can now have a peaceful tournament. And the other part of it is what you've mentioned already, where there have been some sort of visa bans, and now we are going to have influx of people, who will have the opportunity to go to the United States and, of course, to see the World Cup that will be hosted by them as one of the nations. However, now my concern is on the 10 African teams that actually...
Your concern is not that the visa ban. It's very funny.
My concern...
It's funny that they pick and choose what they like. Okay, you have talent in sport. Okay, you are now welcomed. You are not so welcome because...
Okay, so my concern is not on the visa ban, because I know that... being very modest here, you're a Nigerian and you want to travel, you have what it takes, you go.
You do?
Yeah.
How about the $5,000 bond, the $5,000 bond?
Some weeks ago, some people left now. I know people have left.
You're promoting Japan on Razep Africa.
I'm not promoting Japan. I'm just mentioning that you are going to the US and then we are hearing the ban, and at the end of the day, you still see people leave, and then you ask, but
what pathway did you use?
So my concern
because
rather
probably people who had prior visas, because
maybe
affects
but
visas.
like I said, as far as football is concerned, my concern is the 10 African teams that have actually qualified, and I'm hoping because of time that we're rounding off that 10 of them at least will make us proud.
Would make us absolutely
make us proud, because
exactly.
it is one thing to qualify to go play the World Cup. It is another thing to know that you're not actually playing World Cup against African teams, you're playing World Cup with other continents of the world. And
this is an opportunity for Africa to prove themselves, because that is what I am really looking
Speaking about proving themselves, I think we have always tried to prove ourselves, and at the end of the day, we end up not proving ourselves.
It's unfortunate. And you know what happened in the AFCON also exposed us to the ineptitude. And we often accept in our country.
We are having issues already in-house, okay? Because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be all African countries coming together to see if we can give support to each of the African countries as they get playing. So we have about 52, and then 10 are going out to represent. All other African countries, the other 42 are supposed to back these 10 who are going to support them. But in-house, we're having issues.
Senegal, Morocco. Who has the AFCON?
Senegal, Morocco. So Algeria, Morocco. We're having all of these clashes. And I think thank God that Nigeria, Ghana has actually subsided.
No, Nigeria, Ghana is always going to be there. So, because for some reason we are always at each other's necks. But it's a beautiful. Sometimes it's a beautiful, laughable competition.
Yeah. So so my
brotherly fight.
Brotherly you call it. So my concern is, as you're going out there to represent Africa,
make us proud.
Should we first and foremost not come back home to see how to clear all our mistakes, all our errors, so that as we're going out to represent Africa, we'll be going out in one voice and speaking the same thing, and then see how to give ourselves the support. There's a way Nigeria will probably go to play, for instance, as they're going to play, then Morocco fans, supporters, Algeria supporters will all come out, because it is Nigeria that play.
Exactly.
Exactly. So my concern is, can Africa just come together for once?
No, but that's for sure. I can bet you that Africa always comes together for themselves. If there's anything, we are very proud of each other. We may fight, but we don't come after us. But this is where we end today's edition of Razep Africa. Anita Onyime, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Joy.
Thank you so much for being part of the show. My name is Joy. Until next time when we come your way, do have yourself a wonderful rest of the day.